Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Selena Belisle, and I am the founder and one of the board approved instructors here at CE Institute. And in this training, we're going to teach you how to turn over and thoroughly sanitize a massage table. Now, I'm recording this in 2023 after going through the COVID-19 pandemic. And during the pandemic, we wrote different operational procedures that therapists could follow during COVID-19 to help better protect themselves. It wouldn't eliminate the risk of acquisition or transmission while working during the pandemic, but we could certainly minimize our risk with proper sanitation procedures. So I wrote the 7 steps for proper massage therapy table sanitation during COVID-19. But this practice and procedure could be used at any time that you want to thoroughly sanitize your table. Now, what I'm about to share with you is part of a larger sanitation course. This is only extracts and PowerPoint slides from that larger training. So if you hear me reference other training, that's because you're getting a quick glimpse and view of part of the sanitation PowerPoint that we're teaching here at the school in 2023. A massage therapy table and its accessories could become potentially contaminated surfaces during a pandemic, a respiratory outbreak, a flu, and any type of contagious or infectious situation. So here is how we would recommend to sanitize your table during a highly infectious outbreak. This doesn't need to be your routine in between clients. This would be excessive and unnecessary, okay? But if you've had some type of exposure, if we end up in another massive pandemic, if you had blood exposure on your table. Let's say you're doing manual lymphatic drainage and there's a fresh surgical incision that started bleeding and so forth. These are the types of things that you might want to practice to achieve extremely thorough sanitation after some type of event that might happen at your office. Okay, keep in mind if you do have blood exposure, there's above and beyond precautions that you need to do beyond what we're going to share right here. And I'm also going to teach you how to protect your respiratory tract when practicing this thorough sanitation routine because sometimes we have respiratory outbreak of infectious disease. So that's one reason to protect it. And your second reason to protect your respiratory tract is when you're using disinfectants that can be damaging to the respiratory tract as well. You want to protect yourself when you are sanitizing your table and equipment, okay? I don't know the reason why you're going through a thorough sanitation period. This is good to practice probably at least once a week to keep your office and equipment clean. But whenever you're sanitizing, you should always glove up. Because you're trying to eliminate germs, right? So you're also working with disinfectants and chemicals, which we don't want to absorb into our body, especially with our most valuable tools as massage therapists, which is our hands. So let's glove up. Now, I'm not sure why you would be taking this training, if it's from an infectious respiratory outbreak, or maybe you had blood exposure at the office, which you would need to do additional things for. But regardless of the reason, let me take you to the training and some of those options of how you can protect yourself for various reasons. If you're using this training to sanitize your massage table during a respiratory outbreak, such as COVID-19 or a flu pandemic or something of that instance, you want to open any windows or doors to your treatment area to create air filtration. Okay, this is also a good practice when you're using commercial sanitation products. Inhaling harsh chemicals to your respiratory tract can damage your trachea, and other soft tissues of your respiratory system. So opening doors and windows is good practice during sanitation, but it's essential when there's some type of respiratory contagion. You can also wear a facial covering when you are handling cleaners that could be damaging, to chemical disinfectants and so forth that could be damaging to your respiratory tract. In addition to respiratory virus, wearing a mask is recommended. Also, when your linens, don't just think about keeping the clean linens in an airtight sealed container. Think about the linens that have been exposed to your client. Let's say they had something contagious. You want to keep those linens in a sealed container where pathogens and germs cannot be accidentally touched by others, and they're not exposed to the air. You should wear gloves in addition to protecting your airway with a mask. When handling chemicals and disinfectants and so forth during sanitation, wearing gloves is essential because we use our hands to massage clients. We do not want our hands to be red and irritated, the skin of our hands, because it's come in contact with chemicals. Now, after you've protected yourself by either gloving up, putting a mask on, opening the windows, and more, the next thing you're going to do is simply strip your table. Okay, we're going to eliminate everything on the table because we're about to sanitize it with chemical disinfectants. All right. Now, I'm not sure again why you are stripping your table and sanitizing it with this thorough turnover, but I'm going to assume there might be an infectious outbreak. So I'm going to turn you back over to the training where we're going to review what you should do with your table and equipment to sanitize it during an infectious outbreak. Your goal in your massage treatment space is to eliminate any unnecessary items. Your table skirt is cosmetic and cute and makes your room look really nice, but it's not a necessary item. You want to eliminate all unnecessary items that could harbor virus or bacteria within your establishment. That includes like in the waiting area. You shouldn't have your magazines maybe out there. Even during like a COVID-19 respiratory outbreak, paper can hold that virus. And when one person's touching it and sneezing and then touching the magazine and the next person picks it up, that's a threat in your office. Eliminate all unnecessary items, including items on your table that could harbor bacteria or virus or some type of contagious threat. Fabrics such as linens and towels should not also be kept in an airborne environment. I believe here in the state of Florida, where our school is, your linens are supposed to be kept in an airtight container. And that's for most states. Your linens, while it looks really pretty and nice to have neatly folded towels on shelving units and so forth, it's usually not acceptable practice because people could be coughing and sneezing on these, and there could be bacteria and virus. I mean, your fabric's really going to hold some of those pathogens. So make sure that all fabric type material are in airtight or sealed containers. Even if you have like install kitchen cabinets or something in your massage treatment rooms. We went to IKEA and we had these kitchen cabinets. We installed them high up on the walls, and they didn't look like kitchen cabinets. It was just a way to keep our linens sealed and away from airborne exposure, so that we weren't putting germ-filled sheets on our massage tables between clients. Now, if you're responsible for laundering your linens of your establishment, it would be great if you got washer and dryer equipment that had Sanitize settings on it. These are kind of a newer feature of newer machines that I've seen where there's actually a Sanitize feature. The Sanitize feature of a washer or dryer is usually using high temperature to destroy pathogens and germs that may be trapped within your fabrics and linens. Okay, so if you do not have a sanitize feature with your washer or dryer, that's okay. I want you to set your washer to the highest water temperature possible. Because obviously boiling your linens is one way to sanitize them. We're reusing our linens, and while we can never sterilize linens and eliminate all pathogens and bacteria, we can certainly sanitize them and lower the number of germs to an acceptable level. Also, when you're using your dryer, make sure you're not removing damp linens, okay? If the linens are still damp, bacteria and harmful pathogens and germs can still be in that dampness. You want to dry your linens thoroughly and use very high heats. The high heat in your dryer can kill germs, especially harmful germs. Another thing, you can also use bleach during washing. So when you purchase your linens, think about linens that you would be able to use with bleach. Usually white linens can be bleached, and then maybe you can add some fabric softener so they do not feel so, I don't know, sanitized or stiff or anything with the bleach. Change the aroma of that. If you're ordering things like red sheets and red towels, you might not be able to use bleach with those. Sometimes you can use maybe a quarter cup that's well dispersed within the water. But try and use an adequate amount of bleach to also sanitize your sheets, especially if you've had a blood exposure. Most of the times with blood exposure, you're just going to throw away your linens. I wouldn't even attempt washing them. But if you do want to wash your linens after a blood exposure, which is not recommended, you would use bleach, boiling water in the washer, and the highest heat possible in the dryer. But again, blood exposure, I would toss the sheets. It's not worth it. They're probably going to be stained with blood anyway. It's going to be dark brown spots on them. And if it's during like a COVID-19 outbreak or a flu outbreak or something like that, this type of sanitation for your laundry would be acceptable. You should always wash your hands or change your gloves after you've removed the dirty linens from the table. Think that the dirty linens, they're contaminated. Your client has breathed on them, they've touched them. We don't want to have cross-contamination by handling your nice, clean linens with dirty gloves or hands. To sanitize your table, you're going to wash it first with soap and water and then a clean water rinse. And then you would probably dry the table with a paper towel or something like that if you do not have time to allow it to air dry. Okay, it's when you're removing the debris on your table, that can only be achieved through washing. So washing your table with a soap and water and clean water rinse is the only way that can be achieved. You also want to disinfect your massage table if you are concerned for contagions, okay? Disinfection is not effective with physical debris. You can't spray a Lysol spray through debris and think it's going to eliminate germs. It won't. You need to wash a surface area prior to disinfecting it because disinfectant will only work on a clean surface area. It's important to note that you should spend extra time anywhere there is a contagion exposure to your massage equipment, including your table. Okay, so if there's a bloodborne exposure, make sure that even after you can no longer see any debris on your table, there could be microscopic elements left. Spend extra time cleaning it. It's worth it. Also, if there's some type of respiratory outbreak, make sure when you're cleaning your face cradle that you get the bars and the handle of the face cradle, because the client spends a significant amount of time face down breathing on these. And if you are just focusing on the face cushion and not the cradle holder itself, then the point is kind of moot. Make sure that you're thoroughly sanitizing all elements of anything exposed to the client with contagions. Disinfection is fairly easy after everything's been cleaned. We're usually just using chemicals and applying these for an appropriate contact time to allow the chemicals to destroy germs. Make sure you are disinfecting things such as your light switches and any type of table pegs that you might have touched to adjust the table, the legs of your tables themselves, anything that could have been breathed upon or exposed to a contagion. Make sure you get all of those surfaces, because while you might not touch it for your next client, your coworker that might share your room might use it the hour after you. So it's your responsibility to ensure your treatment area is sanitized for safe practices for all. Now, if the table has a hole cut into it for a client in pronated position instead of a face cradle holder and cushion, make sure that you spend extra time sanitizing that facial hole area. And I wouldn't recommend using those types of tables during COVID-19. I would like something removable during respiratory outbreaks. So something that I can reach and comfortably maneuver around all the surfaces of where a client might have been in contact with their face or breathed upon. Even if you have a cover over the cushion itself, bacteria and germs, virus can transmit through fabric. So it's really important that you sanitize the surfaces in addition to changing the linens in between clients. Now, there was a place that I used to go get massage like every Sunday in a mall, and they had those tables with the holes in them. And I never really loved that idea because I don't even think they sanitized them. They were just like putting paper towels over them. So I would grab extra paper towels and pad that hole and sometimes breathe through a paper towel as well. Make sure that you are using professional equipment if you're charging a professional price for massage service. I can tell you during the COVID pandemic, not only was I a little bit fearful of acquisition from a practitioner or being in space where others were that were potentially infected, but I'll never forget the table with the hole in it. I just didn't feel that was a really sanitary practice. They definitely did not commit to dwell times between clients to have effective sanitation. And that made my difference whether or not I went there and spent a couple $100s every week for service. So if you are in another pandemic or some type of contagious outbreak, just know that the sanitation processes you used before the outbreak might reflect whether or not your clients trust you to come back during a several-year outbreak such as COVID-19. If you're not known for good sanitation practices, and then there's some type of contagion threat, it might not necessarily be the contagion threat that has your clients fearful of revisiting your office. It might have just been your sanitation practices overall. So it's really important to practice good sanitation at all times. Most disinfectants, when you use them, require several minutes of contact time, which is also known as dwell time. Make sure you're reading the disinfectant's instruction labels and following their instructions on how to employ proper sanitation or disinfectant with that product. The label on that product is the law. If you do not employ a proper amount of contact time with the products that you are using, then it is doubtful that you will achieve proper sanitation or disinfection. Make sure that you learn about contact time and employ it to achieve your goal. To better address contact times, especially during a respiratory outbreak, we recommend investing in 2 sets of face cradle holders and cushions. This way you can sanitize a face cushion and holder and allow for a proper amount of contact time by placing the first cushion and holder aside and using the second one that's already sanitized and hopefully disinfected. And then you can continue to sanitize and disinfect your face cradles and holders between clients and allow proper contact time when you have 2 of these available to alternate. Any type of equipment that you are sanitizing through disinfection, which requires contact time, it would be good if you had two sets of that type of equipment, because being able to swap out the equipment and use newly sanitized materials that had a proper amount of contact time, that's going to be your best practices to avoid infection. If you're trying to sanitize the same equipment over and over and over again with back-to-back clients, it's really hard. Skips get missed, clients show up late, you're running behind, the process gets rushed, and now all of a sudden you do not have proper sanitation and disinfection. So if you have two sets of equipment, that's definitely best practices. It will certainly help achieve best sanitation. This is where I'm going to end the presentation for the 7 steps to proper massage therapy table sanitation. If you want to review the article in full, and we probably gave you more than 7 steps there, didn't we? If you want to review the 7 steps in writing at Massage Magazine, you can just go to massagemag.com. And in the search bar, you can type in my name or 7 steps for proper massage table sanitation, and this article should come up. So there's a lot more tips in this article in how to protect yourself and create better business operations during a viral outbreak or an infectious outbreak. So there's some more suggestions in there. If you want to read that article, you might find it helpful. And again, this was part of a larger sanitation training course. We just pulled out a few slides here, over 20 slides, to share with you so that you could see what we're teaching here at the school. Our school website, if you want to learn more, is CE, as in continuing education, so ceinstitute.com. And we hope we see you in some of our courses at the school. Until we do, be safe.